Hello, and welcome to Morning Coffee
and Maestros.
Today's episode is called Pandemonium, or Possibilities. We'll be discussing the challenges of planning the concert season during an ever-changing landscape, how the arts can re-envision and reimagine themselves, and how they can deliver their mission during this health crisis. Is it absolute pandemonium, or are there possibilities which can make the arts even stronger in the wake of COVID-19?
And we would like for you to join in the conversation on both Facebook or YouTube. Using the live chat function, you can ask questions, make comments, and be a part of this conversation. And we ask that you please be a part of this conversation today. So feel free to ask any questions during the broadcast. Whether you have questions or concerns about going into this unprecedented season, what kind of innovative ideas and programs have you seen? We'd love to hear from you about maybe some of your suggestions.
We absolutely do, and you know, we've all been through a lot since that fateful Friday the 13th in March. KeyCarell and other arts organizations, we stopped the music, the theater, the dance, it seems like everything else. And during this very extended intermission, arts leaders have been trying to find ways to continue to be relevant, to connect, to deliver their mission. And one commodity we have had this entire time that we've gained is time, lots of time. So Jamal, tell me, how are you occupying your time during these unprecedented times?
Well, I tell you what, I have read more books in these last few months than I think I've read in my entire academic education. And have been listening to music. My wife has been cooking a lot of things that aren't healthy, so I've gained a lot of COVID weight. So at some point I'll need to start working this COVID off. I've been riding my bike, but I just keep putting on the pounds. How about you? What have you guys been up to?
Well, I've been putting on the pounds as well. I think my wife is a wonderful chef, and I am. Obvious, you can tell that from when you see me. And I'm like you, I've been working a lot on reviewing a lot of pieces that I maybe didn't know very well, learning a lot of music. I have the stack of books that I was going to read, but I still haven't read, so it's kind of normal. As some of you know, what I like to do is I love to climb mountains. That's my pastime. So every summer, my climbing partner, Rob, and I, we go climb a couple mountains all over the world, really. And this year, we were going to be going to the Bugaboos in Canada, which is one of our favorite places, and we had planned a really amazing trek, but since that's off the table, we had to go, well, what do two old mountain climbers do? And so we've decided we've taken up mountain biking. And most people don't know, but there really are forests in Florida. It's hard to believe, but there are. And there are a lot of mountain biking trails, and what we found is that it's a great pastime. It's something we can do together. You're not going to catch COVID-19 because you're going 25 miles an hour through the forest. And we found that it's really exciting, but it is a lot scarier and slower than mountain climbing.
I'm sure.
So as you know, I'm about to say what I just said. I already said that.
So I guess my first question really for you is, how has KeyCarell been weathering this storm that we call COVID-19?
Well, I tell you, it's interesting because when it first happened, it was all about survival. We were doing everything we could to mitigate our losses, get ourselves in financial footing as best as possible. But after the survival mode, we need to be thinking about being ready for the revival. And I think there's going to be a revival because this time has really brought home how important it is to experience live music and to experience live music with someone. That whole time is really exciting, and I think it's more meaningful than we even thought. So what's happened, I think, is there's going to be a time when it's safe to come out that we are going to go crazy because finally we can go to the theater, we can go see an opera, all those things. So I think once we're past the crisis, we want to be ready for the revival that can follow. And we're weathering the storm really well. Our administrative and artistic positions are all secure for the coming season, so we're good there. We've reduced our operating expenses. We've had a lot of people who helped us with an emergency assistance fund. Right when it happened, a lot of people turned back in their tickets, which really helped a lot. We also took advantage of a lot of grants and a lot of things like the government assistance programs like the PPP and the EIDL and all kinds of things with letters. The most important thing is our donors have continued to support us. which is really, I think, the most important because we want to be poised to keep giving back to the community during the crisis, but even beyond the crisis.
Well, I would certainly say you sound kind of like a Baptist preacher with this revival that's coming.
I know. I think it's a revival. I think we'll get the tents out. We'll do a tent revival with choral music. I think it's worth it.
I love it. So, what are some major challenges or difficulties that not only you see with KeyCarell in the coming year, but just with performing organizations all over the country? What are some challenges that you think we're going to face?
Well, we have a lot of them, obviously. I think the biggest one is that generally when we perform, we have a large performing group, a lot of times an orchestra, a large chorus, and we're performing for large audiences. So we have to find a way to bring our artists together and our audiences in a way that's safe and be able to perform. So that's the greatest challenge, and I think you're seeing that all across the country. Arts organizations are finding different ways to respond to that. The other thing is we need to figure out a way to determine a way that we can deliver our programs in this interim time, which is another real challenge because we're limited by what we can do content-wise, but we have to do some content. And then I mentioned a little bit ago about funding, and funding is probably the most important part because if these organizations are going to survive this time, we're going to be relying on the support of others to kind of help them. And so, I tell people if you can purchase a season ticket, if they're doing that, a season subscription, if you can do that, if you can make a donation, because your gifts that they give now are going to ensure that these arts organizations that they love are here during the pandemic, but more importantly, after the pandemic.
Ticket sales are, I don't think we often think a lot about it when we're in season and things are going fine. But when you really look at it, ticket sales are probably a major contribution of revenue. Are there any ways in which we can perform concerts in this digital age and possibly still get some sort of revenue from that?
I think there is. We've been doing a lot of content as a lot of arts organizations, a lot of content we're doing just as a service to our communities, to be out there like this program. We don't charge for this program, but we want people to be able to connect with us. So there's those kinds of things, but we also have to find a way to monetize. So most arts organizations, performing arts, about 25% of what they earn in revenue is from tickets. So only 25%. So the other 75% are coming from grants and individual corporations and private support. It's that. With KeyCarell, ours is a little higher. We're at 35%, which is still small. So we have that kind of issue. How do we raise the extra money? And I think what's going to happen with concerts, if we're doing concerts in a socially distanced manner, then what's going to happen is, that we're not going to be able to get to 25%. Maybe we get to 15%. So I think one of the things we're looking at models that you'll see this year are maybe a combination of a socially distanced audience that's also available online in a protected way that can be available for subscribers, ticket sales. But I think that's a real tricky thing. I know right now we would be selling subscriptions and individual tickets. But right now we're not doing either yet because we want to make sure that when we do, we can deliver what we want to deliver.
Yeah. What are, I think, kind of honing in specifically, what are some specific challenges that you see facing both instrumentalists and singers?
There's a lot going on there, and I think, let me start by saying that I think we had this conversation yesterday, and that is that I'm a classical musician. I never thought I would have to be a hobbyist scientist and an IT specialist, but that's kind of what we're having to do because we have to learn a lot about this virus, about how it's being transmitted. We have to learn a lot about technology so that we can find ways to deliver this product that we want to. So there's a lot of challenges. And so I guess I'll start by saying that I am a hobbyist scientist. What comes out of my mouth may not be exactly 100% true. I think what's happening with science is, I think a lot of times we think science is finite, and it is, but while they're discovering, you can have one group of scientists saying this and another group saying that, and they don't match. And it takes a little bit of time because they're learning this on the spot. So there's a lot of I know in May it was kind of like singing is the worst thing you could possibly do, and now that's been adapted a little bit as we learn more about it, but we're still learning. So I think the biggest challenge for singers and instrumentalists is that we spread droplets at a greater rate than someone just speaking. So those droplets can carry the virus, as we know, and we have to understand better how that's happening, how far, so we can mitigate it. And so that's why we have things like social distancing, face masks, things like that. That can apply to singing, but we need to know more about it. That can apply to a flute player or a trombone player. But there are also questions about aerosols, and I think the virus, if and how the virus can be transmitted through aerosols is another thing that people are still kind of coming together with. But I think we have to just realize that right now there's not a lot of absolutes. I think we're trying to find it out. But right now there's no secure, and I think peer-reviewed data, which is really important because scientists will do a study, but until their peers have reviewed it and vetted it, it's not 100%. And so right now there's not a secure peer-reviewed, I'm reading this because I don't want to mess this up, peer-reviewed data on the dangers of singing itself when taken in isolation, meaning that free from other contributors. Like if you think about the Skagit, Washington KeyCarell, that was, they were still packed in fairly tight. They didn't really practice social distancing. They shared some snacks, some drinks, poor ventilation. So that doesn't really give us the best data possible. So what they're doing now is trying to do studies that eliminate those factors so we can really isolate. And I think what's happened is, it's important to the livelihoods of professional instrumentalists, professional singers, hobbyist singers, and our audiences depends on that. And I think the best thing is that right now there are two concurrent studies going on. One is by the University of Colorado, one in the UK, and what their aim is to find out what the number and size of droplets and aerosol particles are generated by singing compared to someone speaking or other forms of vocalization, a cough, a sneeze. So we have to kind of learn those things and learn about them. And the University of Colorado just published some findings, but not totally vetted yet, on instrumentalists and even using some things like essentially a mask to cover a trombone or a trumpet makes a difference. So next week they'll be doing more on voice, but I think the results of these studies are going to be objective, but the process afterward of the peer review is essential. I think we have to just keep learning and understanding because we just have to understand this virus as best we can to know how we can get people together in a safe manner as possible.
We, I think too often during this time we've been trying to find out what KeyCarell's doing or what's this organization's doing and all the things that are doing. But I guess if you could just talk for a minute, personally, how are you feeling about what's happening around you, maybe what's happening within the arts organization, and personally, how are you feeling about the upcoming season of KeyCarell?
It's interesting. I think it's like all the stages of grief. I've kind of been through all of those. I think in May when we discovered that there was a real potential risk in singing and getting large groups together, I probably, like a lot of us, thought, okay, well, this will be a couple months and we can hunker down and we'll beat this, we'll be on. And well, now, you kind of go from that sense of not believing it, then you're kind of angry about it, and then, for me, I had to kind of work through that, and I was really just a little bit thinking, well, I've invested my whole life in something I love so much, and now I don't have it. Yeah. And I was kind of in that moment of despair for longer than a moment. And I think what got me out of it, I said to myself, I'm a leader. I need to do something. There's something that we can do. I have to figure out what it is. And I think that really got me out of the doldrums, because I think you just have to come to grips that, this is where we are right now. Yeah. And, we don't know if it's going to be 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year. And we can't just put our heads in the sand and say, we're just going to ride this out. Because I think it's just not the way we are. We have a mission that we have to deliver, and it's really important that we deliver that, even if we have to imagine things in a different world. And I think we're doing a lot of that. I think we still have a lot to go, but when you plan the season, I guess the one thing I've realized is plan about 15 of them and have a lot of ability to adapt and pivot. Yeah. Because I feel like, every every week something changes. Every week something, one or two things impact something else in our planning. And so I am now of the mindset that I always say, as of today, we are ... Because, my plan for today for the organization might be different than a plan 2 weeks from now, maybe
Yep.
even tomorrow. But the idea is, I think, we have to have a plan and many plans so that when the data suggests a strategy that we can implement it. So that's really what we've kind of gone through. And I'm a lot more optimistic than I was, but certainly when you see the surges around our state, it makes it hard. So I think you have to get up every day and say, let's be motivated, because it's easy to just say, this is too hard, it's too difficult, I don't see how we're going to survive this, but we will, and it's because of our innovation and our creativity.
Yeah. So, how do you plan a season? I mean, I personally have been racking my brain for the last few months, because so much of my full-time job responsibilities is sort of planning our choral season around some of the liturgical seasons, but also sort of matching up with sermon series and things like that. And I just find it extremely difficult to plan a season. And I mean, I'm sort of different than KeyCarell, as in, I don't have to think about revenue for the music program and things like that as much as you do. But it's still challenging knowing that we are created as people who communicate. I think I read a statistic that said that a normal human being speaks so much in a year that they've said enough to write 2,200-page books. And so how do you go about planning a season for an arts organization, let alone a choral arts organization? It seems much more difficult than it would be for an orchestra. They can do chamber programs. But for chorus, I imagine, in a symphonic chorus, what do you do? How do you plan?
It's really challenging, because the biggest thing is the meat and potatoes of our ensemble is our large symphonic chorus, which involves a large symphony, a large symphonic chorus. And so I think what we've been doing is going, okay, that day is going to come when we're together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's going to be in 2 months, 6 months, whatever. So right now, as of today, our plan is that we're anticipating and hopeful that maybe by January we're able to get our full group together in some form. So that's kind of one of the things. So what we're kind of looking at now is a fall that is different than any fall we've ever had. I think right now what we're thinking is we're kind of established a 5-phase to come back, because I figured, the program is one part of it, but if I can't get us together in a safe manner to create content, it doesn't matter what the programming is. So we kind of thought about maybe the most important thing is, let's figure out how we get our group back together. And so we created kind of a very layered five phases. And so the idea is to just be very incremental, very, I think, measured in the way we're doing it. So that in August, we're going to get together some section leaders, and we'll practice social distancing, singing in face masks, a lot of protocols that we've already created. And that group is going to create some content. And in September, they're going to create online rehearsals for our singers, because they haven't sung as KeyCarell since the second week in March. So we want to find a way for them to be able to sing. And so we're planning is to have the section leaders and piano and our accompanist Nancy, and we'll do rehearsals every week that they can watch on Facebook Live or YouTube. That will be kind of protected just for us, so that we can rehearse, we can do all the things we've done. They'll be at home, we'll be together, but at that point, it's so much better than Zoom. Zoom is a very difficult, if not impossible, format to do choral music on. The way most people are doing it is, 1 or 2 people at a time can sing or say something, but you can't do that and so you're sitting at home with your earbuds in, hearing piano and singing along, and you're probably thinking this is the worst experience ever because we don't even want to hear ourselves being recorded. So the idea with this is that when you're at home, you're here, you're following the rehearsal as you would, and you're enjoying that, you're singing, but you're hearing other people around you, so it's not so scary. Sometimes one of my come together people said, I can't believe you let me in this ensemble. I sound so terrible. I'm thinking you sounded that way before. No, I didn't say that. It's just, it's a very isolated situation to be singing on mute on Zoom. So this is going to be a better thing. So that's kind of our phase one, our phase one, our phase two. Phase three is getting together the chamber chorus, which is our smaller ensemble, easier to manage, that we can do socially distanced with face masks, all the different things we're doing. We're fogging the room, those kinds of things. All of those type of protocols that we can get them together, and if we can do so, then that gives us, they're going to have a lot of space, a lot of room, probably 8 foot in circumference from everybody, maybe more, but that group can start to rehearse and create content. And so our thought is in that phase three, they can create a concert. So one of the ideas we're talking about doing, or not talking about, we're planning to, is Together We Rise is our first concert. And it's all music that is uplifting, it's inspiring, and I programmed it when I needed that inspiration the most. So it's stuff that I think will really speak to people, and that'll be something that we record professionally on video that we'll make available to season subscribers. It'll be protected so we can monetize it at least somewhat. The chamber group also in phase three will do a Baroque concert of Bach and Vivaldi. There again, that we can perform that socially distanced amongst ourselves. That might be a performance maybe by January that we can have 25% of the place filled with an audience. But in phase three, we can get the chamber chorus to go there and they can create some content for us. Phase four is we start bringing the chorus together in small groups of 30, 35, and we rehearse. I don't know how we're going to do that. We'll figure out a way. And then phase five is we're back to coming together with, I'm sure, some added safety precautions, but that we're actually together. And the last three phases are all based on what the CDC guidelines are, what our community is saying, and what the testing and data is in our counties, because that'll dictate it. So we kind of have phase one, phase two. We know what we're going to do. September or August, we're going to do this. September, we're going to do that. Phase 3, 4, and 5, we don't know when those are going to happen. So I think when we start to plan the season, what I need to do is be really cautious about letting anything that we create, that we can move it to wherever it needs to go. So for instance, we have a very exciting collaboration with the Sarasota Ballet. If that doesn't happen the weekend after Thanksgiving this year, it gets moved to the next year. So the idea is we don't lose any of these great events. We just move them around and adapt them. And the first big concert the chorale might do is Haydn and Mozart, which Haydn and Mozart did not make the list last time, I would say. They did not make the list, Haydn and Mozart, but they did for this concert, and they're doing Mozart's Coronation Mass, a very joyful piece, and we're doing the Lord Nelson Mass of Haydn, and that piece featuring Jamal Sarakoki as a baritone.
Oh,
that's right, you're in.
That's right.
But that
I'm
piece,
doing Haydn.
I know, and you love Haydn, so it's a perfect match. So that piece is called the other, what he titled it was the Mass in Troubled Times or Anxious Times. And I'm thinking, wow, if there's ever been anxious times, this is it. So that's kind of the plan.
Well, do we have any questions from our audience?
We do. We have one good question. This is from Sam. He wants to know, one thing he's trying to figure out are ways to reach the community other than through video media. He's saying that with some of our older, technically challenged patrons, are there ways that we can connect with them when we can't have physical contact?
I guess for myself, I would think of an idea that I've been considering is it, when we are able to, what would it look like for maybe us to do some of that fun come together music we did for like an outdoor concert. I know it's Florida and it's super hot, but just, even a way for people to come outside. And I think that's the biggest thing, is so much of what we are putting out forces the people to stay inside. And how is there a way in which maybe we can get people to come out and enjoy a chamber concert of just really fun, uplifting music, just to get outside and get some fresh air and just see people in a way?
I think that's a really good idea. One of the things that a lot of people are talking about is I have a colleague in Winter Park that's thinking about doing an outdoor Elijah.
Oh, wow.
Which would be kind of cool. They were planning to do that last spring in a typical way. So I think that's one of the ways that we can create content. But I think you're right that I'm sure a lot of people are like I am. They're like, oh, I have to learn Zoom now. Oh, I have to, all these things. So I think there's, certainly online we have a greater ability to reach more people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Sam brings up a really good point that I think what we need to find are ways that we really can connect in a way that's not as artificial as online can be. I think one of the things we talked about doing is, I make my calls kind of fairly regularly to a lot of our donors and sponsors. One of the things that the Sarasota Opera did I thought was exceptional was what they called their Opera Mobile. And what they did is they had a couple singers on a flatbed truck that drove through town and stopped at donors and gave little impromptu concerts. And I think those kinds of things are great. And that's one of the things we're having our chamber chorus and our section leaders. I think we can create some content that we can kind of take somewhere.
Yeah. And
so that's I think the greatest challenge for us right now is, if I have 6-8 singers that we can work with and then we can create this content and create ways to engage people. But I think outdoor is a great way, especially, let's say, after October 20th.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hopefully that your friend in Winter Park has found a good Elijah.
I don't know. I can think of somebody who would do a great one.
One of the things I've been kind of thinking about is what doesn't make it but adds to the experience of a symphonic chorus is symphony orchestra. So during this times, obviously, I would imagine financially probably have to pare down on, the size of orchestras. But do you ever consider negotiating to pay them less?
That's interesting. That has come up. And the answer is no. But that's a good thing because you say, well, gosh, everybody's struggling. Can we do, if we were going to use 30 musicians, can we use 20 musicians? And will they work at 70% of their regular rate? And, groups like KeyCarell, I think, serve a very unique niche in our community. Certainly, our best players in town are core members of the Sarasota Orchestra, and they get a decent wage, but they really can't live on that wage alone. They have to augment that through teaching, through various gigging and all those kinds of things. And groups like KeyCarell have not a lot of performances, but enough work throughout the season that they can make several thousand to kind of augment what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And my opinion has always been that to ask an orchestra member who hasn't worked since March, can you come and work at a discount? It doesn't set with me well because they're struggling too. Yeah. And they're a big part of our art form. And I think the most important thing we can do is support them because they bring so much culture and beauty. One of the reasons KeyCarell is so great is because we have such an incredible orchestra that we work with. So for me, I think the most important thing we can do is compensate them as best we can. If you think about it, if we were going to do 30 musicians and now we're going to do 20, we've already given them a pay cut.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good question, but I think we have a responsibility to say to everybody that these programs are not inexpensive. They have cost to it, and we have to we can't. That's why I think sometimes giving away for free, which is good outreach, isn't always good business because then people maybe they lose track of how expensive it is to do one of these concerts. So I think that's it's something that, same thing, let's have all the singers work for free. Well, these are professional singers that have lost a majority of their extra income. So that's where I think, we just need to keep those artists in mind because they're the people that make the music. And in our case, we can't do the kind of art we can without them.
Well, I certainly, plug to you, the listener, to really contribute to the efforts of KeyCarell. KeyCarell has really uplifted our community, has found a place for people of all ages and backgrounds to have a place to sing well, to sing in an accomplished manner. So I would just employ to all those who are listening today to really continue helping to support all the missions of KeyCarell throughout this COVID season, so that we can be a beacon of hope and light into the arts community and really take care of our artists outside of KeyCarell who partner with us. I wanted to ask if you could maybe talk a bit about our upcoming season and what we have planned.
Sure. What we're talking about, the first concert, and we anticipate the middle of October, it might move a little bit, is going to be that Together We Rise concert. And that one is, it's just lots of great stuff. Everything from, one of the pieces that we're going to open with that is called The Awakening. It's by Joseph Martin. If you're a choral lover, you probably know that piece. But why I chose that was it talks about a world without music. And there's no hosannas, there's no praise, there's no singing lullabies. It's just the world's completely void of music. It's silent. And then on the second half of it, it becomes what the world is like with music. And there's just this outpouring of joy, and it has this huge climatic moment. And as I thought about this crisis, we've silenced music in a lot of ways. And so whether we're together as an audience or not, we're together in spirit. And I think we all have in our minds maybe something that we didn't realize how important this is. I know music is my life, but I tell people maybe I didn't appreciate as much as I did. I mean, to me, that moment of hearing those 100 voices coming together, there's nothing like it. I tell people it's kind of like sitting in a Maserati and you got to get out of jail free card. You go, we're just going to drive as fast as we can.
But I think that's sort of some of that, what you really said at the beginning, that revival, because I think even for the professional musician, we have spent the last 18 years, there's been concerts and chamber ensembles and things that really have benefited us that we enjoy, but we have really spent just concert, rehearsal, just working. And I do believe in that revival, that state of mind that after this, we are going to be so much more serious about our music making, that it's going to take on such a deeper level, a deeper meaning. And I think just right out of the gate, there's just going to be some intense emotional performances going on. But please keep talking about the season.
Sure. Well, I think that Together We Rise is the first one. Then I think the next thing that's probably going to happen will be another chamber concert that could be maybe with an audience, socially distanced, certainly with the singers that way. And we just chose two pieces that I love. One of them is the Vivaldi Gloria, which you hear when you don't really hear it done by a really wonderful ensemble always. So we want to really it's a great piece. I love the piece. I haven't done it in years and years. So we're going to do the Vivaldi Gloria and the Bach Magnificat, which is one of my all-time favorites. So we're going to be doing that. Those are works that most of our singers have had some time, because we're assuming, although we don't know, that we're going to have to prepare these concerts a little bit with a little bit less time than we might typically. And then we're looking at January, probably doing our Perfect Pitch Luncheon. We're going to be honoring, our honoree this year is Nate Jacobs from West Coast Black Theater Troupe, which was an easy decision we made back last December. So we're going to have the WBTT singers with us. Awesome. And Nate, which will be great. We have this concert, the Mozart and Haydn, which is called Coronation. That'll be in February. In March, we'll have our Tomorrow Voices Tonight, which is our student scholar recital for our student scholars, which is a really nice opportunity for them to showcase what they've been learning with us. Middle of March, we have Cirque des Voix, our Circus of the Voices, and we're working on planning Tomorrow's Voices Today, which is a high school choral festival, which kind of depends on how things evolve. And we had a couple things that we were really excited about presenting this year that are probably going to move to fall. One of them we don't know yet. We have this, I mentioned with the Sarasota Ballet, a really exciting program called Sheer Grace, which combines music of John Rutter, Eric Whitaker, I'm thinking who else? Oh, Ola Yalo, one of our great fans. We have a really wonderful program planned, and if it doesn't happen this November, we'll do it next November. The other thing that we had planned this year was called Choral Splendor in 40 parts, doing the Talus, Spem, and Allium, these pieces that were written for 40 parts. And the trick right now with that is we need enough time to be able to prepare it, but we also need to bring in these 8 incredible vocalists from all over the country, and I just don't feel comfortable doing that now. So that great performance is still going to happen, but it's going to happen in January of 22. So there's a lot of moving pieces, but I think the good thing is when it's time and appropriate for us to come together and do concerts, we are ready to go.
That's awesome. We have a question.
Yes, we have a question from Jan, who wants to know if you will be rehearsing at all with our outreach choirs.
It's a good question. Yes, we will. Jan, I think the plan is right now, and we could probably even skip ahead, we were going to talk about that later, but we will now, and that is the Come Together Choir. We did that last March, really because we were just in the middle of, I shouldn't say middle, almost the end of working with our outreach choirs. Our outreach choirs are the Off-Key Chorale, which is a choir for those living with Parkinson's and their care partners, and then we have the Where Are My Keys Chorale. We didn't name it, they did, for those living with Alzheimer's, dementia, memory loss, and their care partners. And we had been rehearsing. We were, for most groups, I think we were about 2/3 of the way through, ready to do our concert when we had to shut down. And so we came up with the idea of the Come Together Choir. That would be a way that they could participate and keep singing, because a lot of what's really helpful for my Parkinson's folks are all the breathing exercise, the vocalization, using your voice every day. All of those things are so important to their long-term health. And so the Come Together Choir is not the best solution, but it's the best we could do. So the nice thing is they can do those episodes over and over. And so we've done 6 of those episodes, and we're going to be doing more this fall, because we don't anticipate that we'll be together with our Off-Key Chorale and our Where Are My Keys Chorale. So what we've decided to do in the short term is create 8 new episodes of the Come Together Choir, online choral rehearsals, and we're going to be doing music from the folk era of the 50s and 60s. So music of Pete Seeger, Mamas and the Papas, Kingston Trio, those kinds of things. And we'll have 8 episodes. We're going to record those in August, and then we'll be able to have those start airing in mid-September. So that's kind of our fall plan. Our prayer and hope and anticipation is that we'll be together with them in face-to-face in the spring. If that doesn't happen, we'll do another Come Together Choir, because it's really important for them to have that that connection, that the therapeutic benefits of singing is so important. And the Come Together Choir isn't the best. It can never replace 30 people in a room doing something ennobling and great for your spirit. We can never replace that, but we can at least make sure there's something to provide for them, because our outreach choirs are really important to our mission and important to us, because they're not just singers, they're friends, they're people we care about. And I know you were our accompanist for the Where Are My Keys Chorale, so
Yes,
tell us a little bit about what, from your perspective, sitting back at the keyboard, how was that experience of doing the Come Together Choir?
The Come Together Choir is, probably, I think, one of my favorite things to do. As a musician, you're always looking for ways to give back to the community. But playing this music, just gave me an experience of feeling useful in a time like this. I mean, my main modem of music is singing and conducting, and every week I have to sit behind an organ, and I wish I was the world's greatest organist, but I'm not. But it was really fun, and it was for a really worthy cause. And just this past season, having been a part of the Where's My Keys Chorale, I tell you, it didn't matter how bad my morning was. And there were some weeks I had horrible mornings, really stressful mornings. The moment I was able to get to Where's My Keys, it just changed my whole countenance. It's just all of these people, some who are really struggling and some who are kind of on the beginning stages, they didn't care how they sounded. They just wanted to sing. And
Exactly.
I think that's the joy that I'm missing is I think we'll have a new appreciation for people who, aren't the best singers or trained singers. It's just being in a place where they are just joyful to sing. Heals the spirit, heals the body. I mean, it's just, and for me to be able to play all of these jazzy things and fun things that I don't normally get to play, that's, it's also a really fun time for me. So
Well, you do a great job at it, and I think part of it is, I think both of us bring a lot of joy to the experience, and I always tell people it's the easiest hour I have, and I think even when we're recording the Come Together Choir, I still feel that connection with those singers because they're part of our extended family, and that's just one of the things we were talking about, the pandemonium part. We've been living the pandemonium, and now we're kind of into the possibilities, and I think that's where things like Come Together Choir are a really great a great way for us to connect. And these are things that we probably never would have done. They say necessity is the mother of invention. We needed a way to connect with people, and so that really came out of it. And we just did 6 episodes, but those were seen more than 4,000 times.
That's
We had
awesome.
nearly 400 people that registered. What I thought was great about it was we had not just our outreach choir people, which was the main focus for that. A lot of our regular KeyCarell people joined in because they wanted to sing. We had people from all over the country, which really surprised us. We had 3 middle school choirs that used that as part of their curriculum when they were trying to do online learning. So it really reached a lot of people, more than we ever would have guessed. And so that's part of just coming up with ways to, what can we do? It's like, we know all the things we can't do, but what can we do in this time? And I think that was one of the more interesting things. And I wonder too, I think you have a real challenge because, worshiping in church, there's a wide spectrum of what people are comfortable doing. There are churches that are open, there are churches that are closed. What's the status of your position now, and how do you see it evolving in the coming months?
Well, we had our elders meeting last night, and they are on the decision of opening at some point in August, and have really, we really spent a lot of time talking about how to open, how to be safe about it, precautions to take, having people register online and things of that nature. And worship is, I think people see, worship as something, the Lord's Day worship as just another activity, but it's, for Christians, it's something that's commanded in Scripture. And we've kind of gotten the slogan, the church is not the building, it's the people, which is true. But that makes it more important that we are actually gathering to have worship experiences. And so for me, it has opened up, this time of digital technology has opened up a lot of possibilities. We've been recording our services, and then I've been doing a weekly thing on Fridays called Music in the Word, and it's basically just a really low-key, non-performing kind of thing where I just read scriptures and sing a lot of people's favorite hymns and gospel songs, and just do it, in a it's not something that I need to be performing. I can just do. I can just sit down one day and say, I'm going to play this, and just have fun. So we've been doing that, and doing weekly videos of just talking to people. We've been doing a lot of Zoom. I know my Bible study, my men's Friday morning Bible study, we've been on Zoom for the last few months. And so the challenge for me is, what do I do when we open? How do I start bringing back the choir? Some who are raring to come back, and some who are afraid to even come back. And that's now that I know we are on the precipice of opening, it's kind of now I really have to come up with a solid plan of bringing people back together. Because the thing about our congregation is we look at what the CDC has been saying about the older population, and our congregation is 99.99% 65 and older. So there really is the challenge of how do I get my choir back together after really seeing my whole season kind of decimated. All of these plans that I've had are sort of decimated. But I hold on to the hope, knowing that once we do start coming together, one, it's probably going to be hard to fight back the tears, just because it's been so long. Mm-hmm. And I was really glad that our concert happened the week before this whole thing happened. But just not to have been in church on Easter this year was really weird. And so I know that once we do open, I'll have to make a really concerted effort of figuring this out. Right now, my plan is to give it about a month of just having people in the building. And then come September, I'll probably start doing some small ensembles, just rotating people to lead the hymns on Sunday mornings.
That's a good idea, yeah.
And then my hope is by October, I can sort of bring as much of the group together in a very social distance way, which will probably mean I can't rehearse in my choir room. I'll probably have to rehearse out here.
Yeah.
And just finding a way to get people socially distanced, because that's for our congregation, that's one of the things they love is their choir, and so it's really affecting the church, and not just our church, but I mean the church in general. It's really affecting us from a spiritual way, but also from a financial standpoint. How do you, knowing that it's going to be a long time before these rooms can be crowded again with people, how do you keep the financial security happening for church organizations? And we're very fortunate here at VPC that right now we're doing very well financially.
Well, it's, as we said in this episode, it's all about the possibilities, and we're all trying to discover what those possibilities can be. And I think we've seen a lot of things I think have been really innovative. I think one of the things that we all see a lot of are these virtual choirs, which are good in a lot of ways. I just wanted to mention just a little bit, because we have the person who really created the whole idea of a virtual choir was Eric Whitaker, years ago, and he's now done the Virtual Choir 6, his 6th edition. This one, he wrote a piece especially for this time called Sing Gently, and it is really a beautiful piece, and I know we had a few of our singers participate in it. One was Lynn Lash, who's an oboist and also a wonderful singer, and I think your wife.
My wife did, she did join in on the Eric Whitaker, and I am learning to like Eric Whitaker. He is sort of, I'm gonna say it, I feel like everybody hates me because of my musical choices.
I don't know.
But I think
the Handel and Haydn Society already has you on the hit list.
I think my thing with Eric Whitaker is he's always been the Fabio of choral conducting, and I just like just you know, if you run your hand through your hair one more time, you know.
His beautiful hair, though.
He
you have to
does.
say, it's
He has
hair.
gorgeous locks. But my wife definitely, she loves Eric Whitaker. I love Olielo so much.
I do too.
I think I just love Ola so much more just because there seems to be this super, I think, academic writing that he does. And Olielo and Eric Whitaker, while writes some very good things, is more in that cerebral, emotional, kind of feel-good kind of space. I think that's probably why I like Olielo so much more. Just this, he just has this academic writing sense.
It's beautiful music. I mean, I love both of them because I'm not going to try to irritate anyone today. But, you know, your wife Jenna, she participated in that, and I think what's interesting about that, I think virtual choirs are great for the audience. They're not necessarily great for the singer because there again, you're following a track and you're singing in isolation, and then they put them together. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is not only the complexity of that, but the cost of that. So everyone says, well, why aren't you doing a virtual choir? Because we don't have that kind of cash or time or technical savvy. But what happens is they had 17,000 plus people involved, and there's latency in all of these different videos. They all come at a different time. And so they were essentially taking 200 singers at a time, and some poor devil was trying to line them up as much as possible. So it's a technological marvel, and I think what's great about, I saw Eric on CBS last week, and he said, you know, it's great because it's kind of its own little art form, and it's really magnificent what they're doing, but by the same token, it can't replace singing. You know, and so I think when people see virtual choirs, they're really hard to do well, but they are magnificent, but they can't replace a choir coming together. And I think we were talking about possibilities. There's a lot of possibilities I've seen, and I know you have too, Jamal. We've talked about them. There's a lot of nice innovation that's going on in our community. I think West Coast Black Theater Troupe has done a couple things where they've streamed some of their shows that you can watch. Nate is doing a show called WBTT Live, where he's interviewing some of their artists. Sarasota Ballet, they're doing free virtual ballet classes. They also have 2 weekly classes that Kate Honea and Christopher Hurd are doing on Facebook Live. I don't dance very well, but I watch them from time to time, and I think, oh, I can't do that. You know, the Sarasota Orchestra has done that Music Moves Us series. There's now like 40 videos up. I just watched last night. I really love what Natalie Helm, the principal cellist, is doing. She has a group called Upward Notes that is essentially taking music out into the community. And so right now, that's not as easy to do. So she's been doing a 5-week series of just wonderful concerts I watched last night. It was really great. And Natalie's doing a great job. I mentioned the Sarasota Opera, the Opera Mobile, which is amazingly hilarious and a great title. I would have killed that title. So there's been a lot of innovation. And so I think that's where we hope. We talk about possibilities. Let's, you know, as arts leaders, let's try to be as creative as we can, as innovative as we can. I know we have a lot of things that we can do that we're not doing, but we're going to keep trying, keep being innovative. And I think, you know, if people have an idea, don't be shy in saying, have you thought of, you know, those kinds of things, because I think, you know, we're not the keepers of the ideas. So that's kind of the thing. So I think we've kind of, we're running out of possibilities, but more importantly, we're running out of time.
We are, but it has really been a really good conversation. And, you know, I thank all of you who have been tuning in each week. It's very rarely do I get the opportunity to sit in this sort of forum and just talk about music and what's happening. So thank you to Maestro, who has really put all of this together and has invited me to not only be his friend, but his associate conductor and his guest here. So what are we doing next time?
Well, you know, next time on Morning Coffee
and Maestros,
we'll be exploring African-American composers and their music. Since our episode 1, which was titled Race in America, the Arts and How We Can Make a Difference, Jamal and I have been delving into these composers and learning more about their music, and we are excited to share with you more about these gifted artists and their music. I know Jamal knows a lot more than I do. I know nothing, so it's been an easy experience for me. Everything is a new thing, but it has been very cool to learn about these composers.
And all of them used fixed dough.
They did not use fixed dough. I don't think so. I think you're wrong on that, but you and your fixed dough.
We will also have links to music by these composers, so you can go and hear some of their greatest works. And I think it'll be a good opportunity for you to open your horizons with us, and discovering more about these composers, discovering more about their music, and really seeing the importance that this will play, and I think how academic institutions move forward with teaching music history.
I think you're right, Jamal, and we thank you for joining in the conversation today. This is a difficult time for all of us. We've been going through a lot of things, but we want you to know how meaningful it is to connect with you every other Friday. We're looking forward to seeing you in a couple weeks, and I think it's going to be fun.
And remember, if you are catching us for the very first time, you can always check out our other episodes on our YouTube channel anytime after they premiere. If you enjoy these conversations, please help us spread the word. Let your friends and families know about Morning Coffee
And Maestros.
And we look forward to seeing you next week, where we talk about the importance of black composers, their music, and why fixed dough is right.
It's not fixed dough. It should be movable dough, because it doesn't make any sense. But I disagree with you totally. But Eric Whitaker, oh my God.